So, a lot of executive functioning weaknesses will show up as memory weaknesses. And so, I wanted to spend a little time teaching you all about all the different types of memory we have because, kind of just in everyday language, we think about memories as like being able to remember stories and remember things. We think about being able to remember facts about certain things. And we think about studying for things and memorizing things. And then we know that once we're not engaged with it anymore, it leaves our brain forever. And so you may notice about your child, and I hear this from teachers and parents a lot of, my kid, I thought my kid had a great memory, and then they'll score lower on a memory evaluation with a psychologist. And that's because they're different types of memory. So, in order for us to remember anything, the information has to get in. And so sometimes that happens visually, sometimes that happens auditorily, but sometimes it is a sensory experience. Like we can remember what something smells like, or we can remember what we felt like in certain situations. And that is a sensory memory where your nervous system is able to recall your felt sense truly of safety or fear in that situation. And some people have stronger visual memories, stronger auditory memory abilities, or stronger, more intense sensory memories. And so think about your child and what works best for them because we want to lean into sharing information with them that way. And then once information gets in, we've got short and long term. Short and working memory are the same thing. So those terms can be thought about interchangeably. And that's like a mental scratch pad. Someone tells you a phone number and you have to remember it before you put it in your phone. This is also the skill that kids have to use when they're taking notes in class. They have to hold the information in their mind, either that they see or that they hear. They have to filter that through their mind, write it, type it, and then it's usually gone until they go back and review it and study it. And then that gets it into their long-term memory. It's easier to get things into long-term memory if they're repetitive. Things like music and lyrics is a whole different circuitry in the brain than language. So that one is a little bit more complicated. But things that are repetitive, things that we experience, like stories and experience, those things get into our long-term memory more easily. And then there's rote and contextual memory. So rote memory is like facts, repeated facts, which can trick us sometimes because some of our, especially our autistic children and teens, have incredible memories for rote facts, especially if it's a high interest to them. Contextual memory is going to be more related to stories, social experiences, nuanced, abstract things that can be harder sometimes to figure out. But then, it can be, if it's hard to figure out, then if it doesn't always get in, and then we can't recall it. So when we're thinking about evaluations at school, or we're thinking about just having our child be able to remember something, we can see differences often between recall and recognition. So some kids struggle with recalling information, but they can recognize it. And then some kids actually struggle to recognize information, like a multiple choice test, for instance, will be recognizing because they get distracted by all the options. So anxious children can struggle with like second guessing themselves, and they would actually do better, for instance, on a fill in the blank than a multiple choice because they're not distracted by, well, maybe it's this one, maybe it's this one. Whereas another child might do better on recognition than a recall. So these are all differences in how to measure information that can make a difference depending on how strong your child's memory skills are in different areas. Whenever there are memory weaknesses, we want to be able to support them with visuals. And it's for a different reason than we would support children with visuals for communication, like autistic children that are young that are not reading yet, or even any young children, not necessarily autistic, who are not reading yet. We use visuals to help with communication. But visuals for executive functioning weaknesses just help kids know, okay, if I forget, I know where to find the information. This could be like a written work plan at school. This could be as simple as you texting them, or I'm going to give you some examples of visuals that for families to use, for kids to use, because that can help support a child's attention weakness, which then can help them become more independent because they don't always have to rely on being reminded by someone else, which then makes them feel annoyed, right?